Serious, what is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think and or wonder about to this day?
My family has tons of weird paranormal stuff, but the one I actively think about had nothing to do with ghosts or anything. My best friend vanished in like 4th or 5th grade. Her whole family just up and left without warning. Got a phone call from her months later saying she missed me and she was safe but wasn't allowed to give any details. Someone came in the room and she had to hang up. To this day I have no freaking clue what happened. Every now and then I try to find her on social media. No luck, yet.
About 1973, I went to work. Got out of the car. Walked to the entrance and on the way saluted Warrant Officer Farty because he was in uniform. He had always worn civilian clothes. He waved me on and said he'd be in a minute. I got to my office and expected to be the first one there because I always got there first as the lowest ranking guy in the office and had to make the coffee. I was surprised that the chief, a captain, and his senior sergeant were already in the office. The captain asked me to sit down at my desk. I thought I was in trouble. He said he had some bad news. Warrant Officer Farty was killed in a head-on collision at 3 a.m. that morning. I protested that I had just seen him outside in the parking lot. The captain said he and the sergeant had identified the body just an hour earlier.
Worked as a night auditor at an old hotel. It was around 2 a.m. and I get a phone call from the pool room, which is supposed to be closed. I pick up the phone and answer and all I hear is very heavy breathing. I hang up the phone and check the cameras and all the lights are on in the pool room. So I go down the hallway to kick whoever it is out. But as I get close to the glass door it is so cold I can see my breath, the door is completely fogged over and all the lights are out. I open the door and the light above me comes on because they are motion sensor lights. I am looking around but I don't see anything. Then the light comes on across the pool from me but nothing is there. Then every light in a path begins to light up around one side of the pool as if something is walking towards me. I ran out of there so fast and locked myself in my manager's office and stayed until sunrise. But the worst was yet to come. I had played it off in my head as bugs causing the motion sensor lights to go off. I was telling my manager about my experience so he would get a good laugh. When I told him about the phone call from the pool he didn't laugh at all. He asked me if I was 100% positive the caller I'd said the pool room, and I said yeah. Then he told me there hasn't been a phone in the pool room for 30 years. I told him there was no way because that would be physically impossible. He told me to go look for myself. I looked and there was no phone. Complete and total beep because I didn't believe in the supernatural at all before that. But to this day no matter how many ways I try to rationalize it, I just can't. It is completely unexplainable.
1988, we were renting a refurbished house that was part log cabin from the 1700s. Was on the john in the bathroom when I heard 3 very loud knocks on the wall beneath the bathroom window. Looked out the window, nada. 30 seconds later it happened again, and again nothing outside. Later, wife and I decide to plant some stuff beneath the bathroom window outside, and 4 inches down we hit a concrete slab. Turns out the bathroom used to be entranceway to the log house. Spooky as hell.
Stayed over at a friend's house. In the middle of the night I woke up to what sounded like someone walking in the attic above us. Thought nothing more of it and went back to sleep. Wake up and on his ceiling were footprints in a perfect circle around his light bulb as if someone was walking upside down around the light. Showed it to him and he just shrugged and said he thought his house was haunted, but it didn't bother him. That was 30 years ago and I still remember it like it was yesterday.
I live in a beach town and one of my friends had just got back to her parents' house for the summer, so I went over to hang out for a little while. Since it wasn't late when I went to go home, I figured I'd take the long way home to drive along the bay for the view of the stars and the lights of the ships waiting to go up the river. When I got to the road that runs along the bay, I realized I wasn't going to see anything because heavy fog had rolled in, which is super common in the spring. This road is a 25 miles per hour road with the beach and trails over the dunes on the left, and houses on the right. I was driving along the road with pretty bad visibility with how foggy and dark it was. All of a sudden from my left I see a figure coming up the dune and towards the road. I slammed on my brakes hard enough to skid a little because I thought it was someone coming off the beach to go to a house across the road. It had the shape of a woman in a long dress, but I couldn't see any facial features. When it got to the middle of the road, the figure it just floated up at an angle and disappeared. There wasn't a beach access trail where I saw it, and I can't figure an logical explanation for the way it hovered and took off. I was stopped and watched it until it disappeared, trying to figure it out. It freaked me out pretty bad, honestly, and even 5 to 6 years later I still can picture the way it moved like it was yesterday.
Years ago now, my best friend and I were in a cafe just wasting time, and we saw a man watching us through a mirror hanging on a wall across from us. Something about this man was so bone-chilling, so creepy, our gut immediately kicked in, and we both looked at each other, and acknowledged how creepy and off this man was. He continued to watch us, so we left the cafe and joked about on our walk home. We were about 16 and just brushed it off. About a week later, this man comes into my work. His face and whole presence is unforgettable. I texted my best friend and informed her that he was at my work, yet again, staring at me without ever looking away. He was pretending to browse the store's inventory but obviously intended on not buying anything. He stared and stared. I told a coworker and walked away for a bit. Strange, but small community, and you see people everywhere. Side note, both my best friend and I have lived in this community for most our lives, and had never seen this man. Alright, fast forward to a few weeks later, and we are at a store late evening in a completely different part of our huge city. We are browsing and the man is there, at this shop that we hardly visit, late, and he was there. He walks in the downstairs entrance and looks directly up at us, as we were looking over the upstairs railing. We nervously giggle and shout profanities, in disbelief. This really off-putting man is here. It was crazy. We told our other friends we were with, and we immediately left. A little later he returned to my place of work, spooking me just as much as he did the first time I saw him. My coworker and manager tell me to go upstairs and pretend to do something to not be around him. He immediately follows me upstairs, and then my manager follows him, as he is aware of the situation and my strange sightings of this man. He hastily walks up to the desk I was behind, and before my manager can pull him away from me and ask him to leave the store, he looks right at me and says, "Can I ask you something? Do I make you uncomfortable?" I don't know what it was, but something took over my body and I filled with dread and fear and immediately started crying. I have never had anything like this happen to me. This man had never talked to me before, just look at my friend and I really intently. My manager tells him he needs to go now and never come back. The thing is, everyone immediately picked up on the very strange, creepy, uncomfortable energy he put out. My coworker had no idea what he looked like, as I had never explained, and he immediately pointed him out when he entered our work and asked if that was him. Everyone agreed something was very, very off. Our HR woman asked that I be walked to my car if I was getting off work late from that point on. I wish I could convey with better and more descriptive words what kind of feeling this man put off. My best friend and I still discuss it. It was 9 years ago.
I came home from work late at night, and when I walked in the house, Amazon Alexa started naming off funeral homes unprompted. Edit: holy poop, I got a silver. Edit 2, 3 silver and a hug award? You love me. You really love me.
I was 20, staying with my husband's friends in West Palm Beach, FL. In the middle of the night, my husband screamed. I opened my eyes and there was a dark figure of a man standing at the foot of the bed. He stood at my husband's feet. I screamed and leapt out of the bed, hitting the wall light switch. The figure was gone and our friends were banging on the door. It was very strange that we both saw the exact same thing.
It isn't very interesting, as I live a pretty chill life, but a month or so after my cat went missing, the doors started to open a little like they would when she was around. And sometimes I felt cold patches on my body where she used to sleep, and the bed dipped. I'm not sure if ghosts are real or not, but I like to think it was her watching out for me.
I was driving at night after a football game as a high school student. My younger sister was in the passenger seat and my friend was in the middle back seat, leaning forward to chat with us easier. We were dropping my friend off before heading home, and driving down a pretty dark road to get there. We lived in a rural area, so no street lights. Suddenly, my sister and friend both gasp and I step on the brakes, thinking they must have seen a deer or something. They're both in shock, asking me if I just saw that old man who flashed up in the middle of the road and then disappeared. I hadn't seen anything, but I was terrified. They were both so shocked and had the exact same reaction. My friend didn't even want to get out at his house once we got there, he was so scared.
One night the door to my room started creaking open, like a half inch at a time. If I would look right at the door it would stop, But when I'd look at the book I was reading and back up, it would be just a bit more open. Finally, it was almost wide enough for someone to walk through, so I said stop it in as commanding a voice as I could muster, and it stopped mid-creak. 160-plus-year-old house, everything creaked. I was almost too scared to go to sleep that night. I know for a fact that no one in my family was home that night. Another thing was a constant occurrence of my childhood. I grew up on a fairly isolated farm, with a wood that came up to the barn on one side and acres of fields between us and any neighbor. Every night when I'd finish chores, shut off the barn light and close the door, the only light would be from a dim porch light about 40 yards from the barn, and, as it wasn't too overcast or foggy, the moon and stars. Anyway, every night I'd feel something staring at me from around the corner of the barn. I somehow knew it had red eyes, and was about 10 feet off the ground. I could feel evil coming from it, and I'd always run to the house as fast as I could, certain it was right behind me. I didn't know what it was, and as terrified as I was, I never told anyone about it because my parents had a habit of dismissing stuff like that, and even as a kid I didn't want to be seen as a sissy crybaby, which is definitely what my dad would have called me. With time I kinda got over it, and figured it was an overactive imagination combined with too many goosebumps stories that caused it. That is, until about 8 years later, when I'm sitting around swapping spooky stories with my friend, who basically grew up on the farm. She said that as soon as the lights were off in the barn, she felt something scary angel staring at her from the same corner of the barn. I asked a few questions, and yes, she felt it was about 10 feet off the ground, and even though she never actually saw whatever it was, she was sure it had red eyes. I was freaking out, and it got worse when I asked my siblings if they had ever been scared by anything near the barn. I was careful not to ask leading questions, and every single one of them said the same thing. There was a scary thing that would stare from the corner of the barn when they'd turn off the light. I know it was just a feeling that we all grew out of, but how likely is it that we all felt the same thing from the same place?
Got home really late from a trip, about 2 in the morning. Had to park on a dimly lit side street to get to my place. As a single female in her late 20s, I call someone when I have to walk alone in the dark like that. I call my dad, who is in a different time zone and 3 hours behind. He knows the drill and we're just chatting. As I'm walking up the hill to my condo building, there's a cluster of small trees and shrubs across the street where a fence ends and a bank parking lot begins. 2 shady-looking guys come out, one smoking. At first, I thought they were out for a smoke. They then started walking toward me. Not toward another building or car, me. They then separate and one is on either side of me, which felt like I was being surrounded. As this happens, I tell my dad, which they can both hear from where they are, I have 2 guys coming toward me, I think you need to call the police. As soon as that happened they made a 90-degree turn and headed down the street. I still think about it often. I sometimes feel like I'm blowing things out of proportion. Especially when I consider that there were 2 nearby residential buildings that would have heard screams and that the threat of someone calling the police on the other end of the phone wasn't much of a threat because who knows police response time. Then I go back to my gut feeling, the way they came out of the cluster of trees, made a beeline to me, then surrounded me in a creepy way that I can't explain, like they were very close on an open road. I still don't know whether it was all in my head or not, but that was a terrifying experience. Since that time, I've parked in the bank lot that's well lit. I have to get up and move my car when they open at 8, but that scared some sense into me. Scared my poor dad as well.
This wasn't creepy but very strange. So I came home from school one day and I was unpacking my bag. I accidentally dropped a sandwich that I hadn't eaten earlier out from my bag, and when I bent down to get it, it was gone. I looked all over that floor and no sandwich. It just disappeared into thin air. To this day I believe that sandwich went to the underworld edit, while my most liked comment was about losing a turkey sandwich to the void. I thank you all.
I shouldn't be here reading all these stories while waiting to fall asleep at 2:42 a.m.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.